Hello, Internet! I'm HamsterBomb.
And I'm Kimothy.
And this is HITBOX, the gaming podcast where we just kind of talk about whatever we darn well please. Thank you very much. And if you remember, Zach and I were actually starting this sub-series where we would just talk about a single game for the entire episode. And it would have to be a game that I have already reviewed, but we feel like I couldn't actually discuss everything that I wanted to say in the review itself, and this game I actually reviewed mid-season 2, so it's an older one, and I don't really like the review very much. It's really short. I feel like I didn't get to say anything that I really wanted to about this game, so I was trying to keep the reviews very short back then. I know I have like a better formula for how I make them nowadays. Hopefully I got better at making them. But anyway, since I reviewed that game, I have played the whole game over again on the Switch, which is actually where we're on right now. When I played it with you guys on our live stream series, we played it on Steam, and I've gone through and played almost everything over again. The only things I think I haven't done on this that I did on Steam was the Path of Pain. Other than that, I've done all the rest of it that I had also done on Steam.
And I forgot about that nightmare.
What?
The Path of Pain, I didn't even... We were talking about earlier today about doing
I didn't even mention the Path of Pain in my review.
Yeah.
But anyway, since that point, Kim had seen me playing it, and I think you were sick or something during that time while I was trying to occupy her.
I was pregnant, sir.
Same thing. So, while she was pregnant, sick, laying down on the couch, dry heaving into a bucket.
Unfortunately, until I played the game, anytime I heard the music, I started feeling nauseous.
But anyway, she decided at one point to actually go back and play the game herself. She wanted to give this one a try.
It doesn't make me nauseous anymore. It's good.
No, now how far did you get?
How far did I get?
Yeah, just to let people know.
Okay, yeah, beat the Radiance, and I beat Grim, and I kind of stopped after that. I got all the charms.
Yeah, got all the charms.
I'm missing all but one mask.
Right. I think you also didn't beat Trial of the Fool.
I did not beat Trial of the Fool. And I got all the soul containers.
Yeah. Yeah, the soul vessels. Yeah, you have all three of them on the side.
I have all three of those.
So what we're watching, if you're watching this one, I'm just going through God Home, an area that we really didn't get to spend too much... I don't even think I mentioned God Home. I alluded to it in my review, but this expansion was kind of my reasoning or excuse to why I kind of thought that the game was pulled down a bit, because the difficulty gets so extreme and what they want you to do in God Home gets so outrageous that I felt like I couldn't give it to anybody and they could play it.
But it's so difficult because it's like you could talk about the base game being great in and of itself.
Right, and it is. So, yeah, we're going to spend some more time just talking about the game itself today.
And I think a lot more individual things, talking more about fighting, gameplay.
Yeah, I really wish I got to spend a little bit more time doing that. The review's only like 10 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, and I guess another introduction for me into a game like this is that I didn't really play Metroidvanias like this.
Or Souls-like.
Or Souls-like.
Yeah, even though a Souls-like, as I have just recently reviewed, is a Metroidvania.
Well, I was very intimidated by these types of games, so I never wanted to play them at all.
They have the reputation of being hard. The idea that you can go in any direction, and coming from where you're familiar with the games that I know you really like, are like RPGs, ones that you can spend a lot of time, and it's kind of clear where you need to go, and you always can grind and make yourself better. But in a game like this, you need to personally get better.
That was my thing. Why RPGs were always my go-to was I didn't have to be really good at a video game to play them and beat them and still have a good time. So this game really intimidated me, but after watching Alex play it a little bit on your stream, and then I watched you play it while I was pregnant, and I was just like, yeah, I really want to play this game. It looks like a lot of fun.
I missed it.
The art was beautiful. It looked like the upgrades. The upgrades looked like it made it manageable for me and made it less intimidating. I was not coming to this game with a background of having played a lot of Metroidvania or Souls-like games, so.
But you should. She, I don't want to jump to conclusions, but Kim really likes this game.
I instantly fell in love with this game.
Yeah, I let Kim choose what game to join me with and do one of these. We still don't really have a good name for these videos of what we're doing.
Because your name that you were giving it was not appropriate.
No, it wasn't. And now you're wondering. So I was like brainstorming with Zach, like it's kind of like a deep dive because we're spending a lot more time on it. And he's like, I want it to be somehow inappropriate, like playing with myself. I'm like, okay, so like balls deep dive. And he's like, let's do it. I'm like, no, that's a little too much. I don't want to name a video balls deep dive. No one's going to pay attention to that.
Not unless you're posting it on certain websites.
Yeah, no. So we're basically just doing an ordinary deep dive into Hollow Knight itself and spending more time focusing on what makes the game so great.
I think I was just like so excited to talk about this game myself because, like I said, I never thought this would be.
Oh my gosh!
I never thought a game like this would ever be on like my top 10 favorite video games ever. I would never have expected that. I'm always like RPGs. All my other games on my favorite list, they're all RPGs, So.
And I want to point out another thing. It's been like a year since I've played this game, so I'm doing really badly here.
It's been like a year and a half, maybe 2 years.
Yeah.
It's been at least a year and a half because I was definitely pregnant, so it's probably like closer to 2 years.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, that's when I played it last. And I really was just watching you play yours and trying to encourage you, like give you ideas or tips on how to beat certain characters.
It was like 6 months ago, maybe. I can't remember when I beat the Radiance, but I remember the euphoria that came over me after beating the Radiance.
That fight's a lot of fun. I think it's a lot of fun. It's very hard.
I want us to get some more to like the structured form of how we're going to talk about this.
Oh, game. Yeah. So let's try and go in order of like what I do in the videos for playing with myself. So basically, we already kind of came up with the first impression segment, and we had a very long introduction. So how about we just talk about the gameplay? What is it about Hollow Knight that? Because we've talked about like in the video, I basically explain the gameplay, how it plays, and it's very clear as you're watching here. Though this area is more of a boss rush, the game itself is obviously a very large, open, beautifully drawn Metroidvania, and you're just going through large environments, beating certain bosses to get new abilities in order to get to new environments.
I think one of the most exciting things of the gameplay is just when you're fighting something for so long and then you finally get the reward at the end. And like the most exciting thing I think you can get as a reward for me is like getting a charm.
Yeah.
Because
I really like
giving you a new way to play the game.
Yeah, I get that. I really love getting items that are actually, I want to call it a Metroid item, meaning that it's something that's really good for combat, but also helps you explore a new area. So, for example, there's like the dash, the air dash you can do on the ground, the mantis claws, the double jump. I call it a double jump, monarch wings. There's like all these different tools that they came up with for this that are really for making sure that after a player, they can only explore a set area. This is like a Super Metroid mentality for designing games like this. You want to make sure that the player is trapped in a small area, but they don't feel trapped. They feel like they're exploring a large environment. And then as soon as they're able to beat a certain boss or break some sort of challenge and get to a reward, the player then needs to utilize some new tool that they were just handed in order to escape the room or the early confines of where they were. I forgot this guy.
One of my favorite gameplay aspects is I still like really getting charms, like I said, when I come across them, because that's like, for me, that's like the holy grail there.
When you're talking catch them
about
all?
Yeah, exactly. When you're talking about just like the maneuverability and going to new locations based on new abilities, that is a very exciting thing, because once you get that, you're like, oh my gosh,
I know where I can use that.
I can go use that here, or I'm going to go backtrack all the way to Crossroads and see where
I have this new attack where I can jump and slam down on the ground. I should use that where I was standing somewhere before and the ground was crumbling and I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah.
And then you're thinking, where was that? I remember there was crystals around me. Oh, but there was another area in the grass. And
backtracking is never boring. Like, for me, it was always like, I'm just learning the path again, and the art is so beautiful.
Yeah.
The backtracking.
The music and...
this is my least favorite boss. Oh my gosh. We'll get to why that's my least favorite later. But gameplay, well, I don't know. Is this deal with the gameplay?
Yeah. So there's your boss that you hate so much. You just jump on its head. Or you could do this too. That would kill it.
I personally don't like that boss because
she tried it too early, I think. You found it kind of early on in the game and you tried it with a very weak nail.
and then when I went back and do it, I still didn't like the boss. Like, it didn't matter. Like,
that one...
Okay, so here...
Compared to, like, this is one of the best bosses in the game.
I love that.
Yeah, I think this would be a great example to say, like, how this one is so much better than Flukmarm, because I agree. Flukmarm is not as great, but I like the idea of what it is, because it's adding variety to the game.
Oh, man, I love this game.
This is probably my favorite boss battle in the game. I love this one.
It's so much fun.
This is just a dance with them. And you need to know exactly how to do it.
So when it comes to the gameplay and battle...
I really wish I could fight the other one. The one that's exclusive to the Pantheon, where all three come out at the same time. I thought
it was the Radiant version of this.
No. It's technically its own version, and you play it through... You have to play the Pantheons themselves. Ooh.
So anyway, like with this fight, like Alex was saying, it's a dance. You're learning a rhythm. You're going with the music, and you're figuring out the timing of things, and it's really about the skill and how well you can do it. Whereas Flukmarm, it's none of that. It's just stand there and beat it until it dies, and it's just not fun. Like, I don't enjoy it. And the first time I went in a little bit too early, like he had mentioned, and it was just too hard for me.
Yeah. Were there any other bosses that, like, you didn't like? Because I know that a lot gave you trouble.
Yeah, stuff
you know what's really interesting? I don't want to ask a question and then cut you off immediately, but I remember one of the bosses that was, like, the wall for me was so hard when I was playing it was the Soul Master. Didn't you beat it on your first try?
Yeah.
She went right up to it and had no trouble with that. And it's like, wow, are you better at this game than I am?
No, it's been an interesting part of the game because there's a lot of bosses Alex beats so easily, and I am just like ramming my head into for weeks, and then
I'm actually kind of comfortable with the Radiance. I'm not too bothered by it.
And then I'll go in and just like beat something on my first try, and it'll take him, a few hours to try to beat it. What was the question you were originally asking?
Was there other bosses that gave you trouble?
I mean, yeah, plenty of them gave me trouble, but none of them annoyed me like the Flukmarm, because I felt like with the
It's fine for them to be difficult, but being annoying is another thing.
Yeah, like the Flukmarm, there wasn't like a pattern for me to learn. There wasn't
it's all based on where you move.
And it wasn't like you could keep going back and eventually you would just get the hang of how it fights, and then you would fight it. It was just essentially like a power thing. You just needed more power. Mm-hmm. I personally don't think this version, when you're fighting it by itself and it just does that, I don't think that's that bad. When it just explodes.
No, it's not a bad boss at all. It's bad. This one was bad because you fight it at the end of the second trial of the... it's the second one, whatever that one is. We'll get to the third at one point. I'm doing this just kind of like run through the game. It reminds us of different areas and different bosses that we fight in there.
I personally loved this boss at your... I almost want to talk about each one of these bosses.
My gosh,
they're so great.
I love the Hive because it was just a gauntlet. And getting to the end, this guy just destroyed me. And then later, I realized he's not hard at all. I was just so scared.
I think I was personally a little disappointed by him when I got to him, because I was excited to be fighting him like 500 times before I beat him. And I beat him on like my third try.
You were excited to have to fight him 1,000 times.
Yeah, because I love that. For me, like the gameplay and fighting bosses is probably one of the most rewarding parts, is because I get such like an adrenaline release once I beat them. Like, it's building up, like I can't beat it, and then you finally just win. Yeah. And it feels so amazing. It's just adrenaline rush, and it feels great, and it's the most rewarding part of this game for me.
We really love the gameplay. And before we move on from the gameplay, I would at least want to hear what the internet would think. Moving on from this, what do you think Kim should play? Because there's a lot of other games that are similar to this. I think moving to the graphics, look at me doing a little tie-in here. I would think that the aesthetic of Blasphemous, even though the game is similar in terms of its gameplay, you would never play that.
No, because I think one of the things that drew me in about this game was its aesthetic. I like that it's this really dark aesthetic too. I feel like there's something we missed about the gameplay. Like,
you can talk about the gameplay of this game forever, and I feel like that's why I said almost nothing in my review.
It's perfected very well. You can tell they take a time. Each boss feels different. Like, none of them feel the same. Yeah,
I'm really excited to see Silksong, because from what I've seen already, the bosses seem very new and different.
Like, you rarely fight the same boss twice, and if you do fight it twice, it's an upgraded version of that boss.
Exactly, right.
Yeah.
Which is something you would expect would happen.
Now, there is
this guy is on top of you.
I did want to talk about real quick that was a little disappointing for me, and that was Nosk.
Why disappointing? I like Nosk. It's so creepy.
It's creepy, yeah, I totally agree with that, but there's like just this place you can hide in the room, and it's so easy to get away from him.
Oh my god, he's alive!
He's fun to fight.
He is. He's really fun to fight, because he doesn't let you heal.
But yeah, that was, I guess, my second most, like, I was excited for Nosk because...
Speaking of which, Nosk is next, actually, in here.
Yeah, I just thought with his original Battlefield, though, it's kind of
Yeah, I'm gonna do what she's talking about, because, like I said, I'm so not confident I am, is really the word I was going for.
It was the most disappointing because I'm coming across this big, creepy monster. I was avoiding him for so long because he's creepy, and then I fought him,
you were so scared to fight him, and I was telling you, I never wanted to, like, reveal to Kim what rewards she would get for doing things.
Oh,
she's like, I'm putting off Nosk, and I know that she's, like, one pale ore away from an upgrade. I know. Like, but if she does it, she'll get that final upgrade. It's her last pale ore.
Ooh.
Yeah, you never want to stand there when he's in the ceiling. Or she. I don't know. I don't judge. It's a bug.
I don't know.
It's more of like a hollow bug. So another thing, kind of like lore-wise, I now appreciate from playing Dark Souls after this game what they were doing, from modifying their original Hungry Knight naming idea and making it a Hollow Knight. It's a Dark Souls reference. And I didn't even pick up on that. I was such a fool. That's another game that I think you would actually really like.
I think I would too. After I didn't really watch much of it from your gameplay, but I heard you talking.
I couldn't stop myself from playing it. It was so great.
I heard you talking to the game and
talking to the game. Yeah, right. I was playing handheld mode a lot.
Sexual moans of.
Oh.
Anyway.
Yeah, we're not talking about that game. Though it's basically this game. It's sort of. So the actual graphics of this, the hand-done art and animations are...
I love the style of this
That might
game.
be what sells it.
The animations are just so fluid with it. Like, you can just tell. Again, this is in their aspect where I feel like they've taken their time to do this the right way.
Oh, yeah. It took forever for the game to even come out in the first place. And then for Silksong, This is why I'm not surprised. We haven't heard anything from Silksong. They're just making new areas and making new enemies. And you realize how long it takes to hand animate all of that and then put the hitbox and hurtboxes into all of that.
I also like the simplicity of this style and the characters. I play a lot of RPGs and normally those styles are really over the top. Mm-hmm. And they're like
or underwhelming and they're all the same.
Yeah, or they're all the same. Well, I'm not saying over the top in a good way. I'm saying like they've got too much going on.
Yeah,
this character doesn't know what direction.
Or they're just so basic and token like just by the books anime character. Yeah, you're almost kind of getting into more story, because actually they do kind of tie in, if like the art style fits what the narrative is. Though I really love like each area had its own color palette overlay, you know?
That is something I have been just absolutely fascinated with ever since Uncharted. It's just like different areas being different colors and thematically coloring your game. It gives a really good sense of the vibe that you're supposed to be getting from that location and what you're supposed to be doing. Yeah, I feel like this boss takes a little bit more concentration.
Yeah, this one does, and I'm sure the farther we get, I'm going to need your help to cover more of the game, because I'm going to get
just go back to the beginning and start again.
Just start the game over?
No, I'm talking about starting over the...
the bosses that I was doing? He's done. Okay, I got the collector. Good. That is a tougher one.
Yeah, that one can get a little tougher just because it can be overwhelming, but it's still rewarding when you finally beat it, and it's great.
I think they're all like that, yeah. I also really like that boss's whole idea. Like, they really thought about what boss is going to live in what area, what kind of creature calls this domain its, and it belongs to it. You know, like, you have the royal leaders of the Mantis army. Back in an alcove, you have the Flukmarm, which is the mother of all those disgusting monsters in the sewers. You have the Hive Knight, you know, like the prince guarding the queen of the... they're all born of the queen, but whatever, he is the knight. And, you know, the collector justifying why you have all of those hidden grubs everywhere in the game.
Yeah, like, why are they in all these little containers?
Yeah. And that's kind of where the story comes out. It's just context clues and learning from the environment.
You can very easily tell background from foreground.
Yes, that is an Ori problem.
That's a very important thing with games like this that are considered quote-unquote 2D.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna get destroyed.
I always say quote-unquut because I'm like, well, Metroid Dread's 3D, but it's considered 2D.
Yeah, it is. They call it 2.5D.
2.5D. Okay, whatever we're calling it now. But
whatever the kids are calling it. I hate how he auto-targets when he jumps. This beast thing is awful.
Yeah, I've only fought it, like, once.
Oh yeah, you did get to this once. She's been trying to beat the Challenge of the Fool. I'm totally gonna die.
Yeah, I've gotten to it. Yeah, foregrounds. You can definitely tell where things are when you're able to pick up something versus something that's just background. Now, you got to be careful with things like that, though, because some parts, just like in Metroidvania fashion, you are supposed to break the walls, and you got to look around, and you've got to destroy the environment to explore more. So yeah,
but there's always clues in this one.
And I like that they aren't obvious, because I hate that when something's obvious. Like, clearly I need to go behind the waterfall because there's going to be something there.
There's always something behind the waterfall. There's always something behind the waterfall.
I don't like fighting this guy. He's okay. I don't think he's a bad boss.
Once you know what to do, he's not bad.
No,
unless he steps on you.
He's just annoying.
Yeah, he is kind of irritating. I just like that you're fighting for a bench.
You couldn't have just sat on the bench next to him.
No, he's taking up the whole thing. See, that's it. He's actually really weak. The areas I really like just because of like the color palette changing, and I felt like everything felt really different, even though you're trying to figure out where are we. Like, and I envisioned like, am I inside the giant like decaying cattle or something?
That's what I honestly think. But
yeah, like where are we? Oh, and the Metroid boss.
There's still environments in this game that are kind of similar. Like you have Queen's Gardens and Green Path, which are like the same like really florally kind of areas, but you can distinctly tell the difference because of the color palettes.
They do look and feel very different. They have a lot of different platforms and the way you maneuver the area.
And enemy variety and stuff like that. How do you get...
I forget how you fight. Oh, you use the little jellyfish. It's been a while. You have to hit this thing. It's awful. You smack that.
Oh my gosh.
And guide it to the big one.
Oh my.
That's the only way.
You took so much damage.
I know, I did. I got hit by both of those, and I only hit it once.
I haven't seen this one, so I'm like, I don't know how you did this without Coral, but...
yeah, this is terrible.
Is there anything else graphic-wise? I mean, the game's beautiful. What else can you say?
It really is beautiful, and it's why it's going to take an eternity for us to... Oh my god!
Well, as long as it's in my lifetime, I'll be happy.
With Silksong.
Yeah.
The story of this. So there actually is a story in Hollow Knight. It's just subtly told, and I really think that they do it by giving you little teasers, and you have more questions than answers when you get anywhere.
I hate this boss.
She's like, oh, I love this game. I hate this boss.
Okay, I'm not saying I hate it in meaning that I just don't like it. No, you always get a free hit there.
You do?
Yes. I'm saying I hate it in meaning it took me a really long time to beat it.
Oh, and this is actually a great one for what I was just saying for the story. It's actually a really sad one. Isn't it Cloth, who is... Okay, we assume you know the game. I'm going to spoil stuff, right?
Right, yeah, this is just spoilers. I say Cloth.
Well, I've heard Cloth a lot, yeah.
I say Cloth because that's an actual name.
Okay, it is? I've never heard it if it is.
I mean, you think of Clotho, right?
No, who's that?
It's like one of the fates. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So I think Cloth. I don't think Cloth.
All right. I guess I was just an idiot. Be like, oh, look, articles of clothing. That's why they named Cloth.
I could be wrong.
But yeah, that boss hits for 2, so that makes it a lot harder.
That's why. So if I'm saying I hate this boss, it's just because it took me a long time.
It took me a long time as well, because it was. You also had to navigate the Queen's Gardens to even get to it.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Oh my gosh, I will lose here. This is hard.
You just lost like the last 3.
I'm just assuring you, I will also lose here. I'm very rusty with this game.
I did go into this fight just because I was like, all right, let me see how this goes.
Invincible, fearless, sensual, mysterious, enchanting,
this
vigilant.
Helps us get back to the story a little bit.
Kind of, yeah.
Zode is your comedy relief.
I guess so, yeah. He is. Yeah,
Zode is absolutely your comedy relief. The story starts... I don't know. Do we just start from the beginning of how the story...
We don't need to... Ow! wow, those explode? I don't feel like we need to actually tell the story of it. I just think that the storytelling in it is really well done because it's all like...
I do love that when you're like picking up little bits here and there and you're not just in a long cutscene waiting.
Yeah, and the story doesn't feel like it matters. You're not playing it for that, but it just gets really interesting and you start caring because of the questions that it's making you ask
yourself. And I think it definitely lends to the style of it too. Like,
I'm dead.
If this game just sat down and gave you a long cutscene, it wouldn't give you the same...
the cutscenes you get are very short.
They're very short.
Yeah, but that makes them mean a lot more. Say, like, you enter the center of the City of Tears, and you see this short cutscene where Hornet swings down, and you look at the giant fountain in the center. Let's do that last.
Oh, I love that fight.
Let's do that last. I'm gonna work my way back over here instead.
Okay, so... yeah, the story gets... It's really intriguing, and you want to keep playing to find out more because you're barely getting fed any of it from time to time.
Yeah, or play more of it in order to get a better ending because you weren't satisfied with what happened, even though you realize, like, what happened needed to happen.
I think it's also an homage to Dark Souls again, personally.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's a Dark Souls ending, and I didn't know it at the time, but it really is like choose bad ending A or bad ending B.
Well, bad ending B in this case, it's different. Like, I feel like with with Dark Souls, no matter what, the world ends. But I feel like with this game...
No, it's very much like, do you want to continue this perpetuating a cycle, or do you want to end it?
But it's going to happen again anyway. So that's what I'm saying.
Will inevitably happen.
At least with Hollow Knight, you're like... stopping this from happening if you get one.
Oh, you're stopping it in the other ending of Dark Souls, which that is a game that you may or may not have played, so I definitely don't want to spoil any of that for you. That game is outstanding.
Well, anyway, so with this game, you've got 3 different endings.
Oh, gosh.
3 different endings?
Actually, there's 4.
Is it 4?
Yeah, remember, you can lock Hornet in the room with you.
Right, that's why I thought that was...
Oh, I forgot he can do that.
Okay, let's just talk about the base ending then.
Well, it's not even just endings. I just like the storytelling of the game.
I know, but I want to mention the endings.
Okay.
Why can't I mention that?
This is your episode. You may talk about whatever you want.
So, yeah, what you're trying to do as the Hollow Knight is you're trying to absorb all of the Radiance's power so it stops influencing the rest of the bugs and everybody stops turning into zombies.
Basically, I think, and the Radiance being just this giant moth god that's somehow locked into a world of dreams, from my understanding.
Right, and she just controls everything and essentially brings a civilization to ruins, so...
Yeah, the way I interpreted it was, like, if she has any followers, they eventually become possessed or obsessed, being completely enthralled with what the Radiance is and blinded by its, like, incandescent light.
Right.
Mr. Solaire of Astora. Now, there's a part 2 after this. I'm not fooled.
I'm not fooled.
You can't trick me.
I remember playing this because I watched you play it, and I was like, I know better.
I did it! I so got hit by that when I did it.
What you're really trying to do is, before the original Hollow Knight absorbed the Radiance, trying to keep it contained, but he can no longer do that. And it's seeping out into the world, and all the bugs are trying to get infected, so you're trying to just stop that from happening.
I should stop trying to hit it.
But also, like, keep in mind, you're a husk. You don't really care what the bugs are going through in their day-to-day life.
It's been implied that that was the mistake of what the Hollow Knight was, that it had developed emotion, and that was its downfall. So, of why the Radiance could seep out, because if it was a truly hollow husk, you would contain the Radiance and it couldn't escape.
Right.
In their world. Whatever that means.
So, like... yeah. Now you are, like, you're supposed to be, like, this perfect void of nothing to go, and you're, like, kind of just, I want to say he's just driven to just go do his job and fulfill what he needs to do.
I think so, yeah.
I love the music for
this is also a fun, silly boss. Doma, 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 doma.
That implies one of the endings that you get, you just kind of take over being the knight, like, the
Hollow Knight.
Yeah, you take over being that Hollow Knight, and you contain the Radiance inside your body.
Shoot.
And the old one dies off, and now you're just trapped inside what is the egg and containing it until that could potentially happen again. So, like, not a great ending.
No, and there's not a lot of great options.
At one point, you get enough. Do you have to have just like the absolute dream sword to get
the dream nail?
You get the dream nail.
The dream nail, and you have to like reconstruct the king's soul. I think from getting one half from the queen who is still alive, and the other half is held by the king. But you can only get there through the dream of a decayed soldier in front of where the palace was.
Who must have just thought the palace was an absolute nightmare.
Well, yeah, buzzsaws everywhere and thorns. Just thorns and buzzsaws. That's where all the money went.
So, like, once you do all that, Hornet thinks, oh my gosh, you're going to actually stop this thing. So she goes in there to help you. So that way you can use the absolute dream nail. Is that what it's called?
I don't think the word absolute was in there at all, but...
What is it called? It's like...
It's just called the dream nail.
No,
True nail.
The true nail?
No, that's
like,
the pure nail is the one that you...
No, there's something called... I hate this battle, too. I had a really hard time with this one.
It's hard unless you focus on one.
But yeah, so you get whatever the maxed out version of the dream nail is, to then you're supposed to hit the Hollow Knight, go into the dream, and fight the Radiance, which is, I would say, is the good ending.
Yeah.
But if you don't do that and you just beat him up, you become the new Hollow Knight, and then Hornet is stuck in there with you.
Yeah, I know.
So that is like an even worse
and obviously a non-canon ending.
One. Right, considering we have Silksong.
Yeah, Silksong exists, it's non-canon, so we're like, okay, that's obviously a bad ending.
And then, you know, like I was talking about, your final ending, you fight the Radiance, you pull it into the void, and you as a husk disappear, but the Radiance disappears with you, and people aren't zombies anymore, I don't think.
I wouldn't think so, but then you've killed everyone anyway, right?
But then again, you've just attacked everybody. And then... yeah, like just the storytelling to even get to that point, and you've got to do the exploration to even get that much of a story.
You do, yeah, and you're really only learning about as much as the story as you have explored to discover yourself, and I think that was what my favorite part was.
Yeah, like...
because it's not like it's a deep story or anything. It's not like Kim said anything that was like, oh, riveting narrative, or the narrative, I don't know why I said it like that, but Naruto. It's not like it's super exciting.
Oh, what a twist. No, there's not, like...
It's just exciting to slowly discover things while you're on your journey, because you feel like you have uncovered these things because your character isn't going to say anything.
It's like this really dark story, though, too. It's definitely almost like a post-apocalyptic story. I hate calling it that, but I think it is.
It kind of is.
But I think that the graphic style and the art lends to it being that dark kind of... I don't know. I'm really drawn to, like, that dark story, and it's like there's not much hope, but there's something there. I think that's why I'm really going to do Dark Souls.
I think so. And Metroid is actually kind of like that, too.
And it's very... what would you call that? I always refer to Metroid being like this, too. Very...
isolated.
You're isolated.
I definitely feel very alone, and that's what makes some of it scary.
I beat this one on my first try.
She did. Oh, right. You can't attack the ghosts. I want to attack the ghosts.
I was so proud of myself.
This one is just about being patient and not creeped out.
I was so creeped out, and then you guys were talking, and I was like, no, I just need to focus. And then don't tell me when you think I'm getting close, because then I'll get the yips, and I'll just die.
Yeah, Kim is quite yippy.
Just play it safe.
Yeah, just playing it safe, and we're not getting distracted by this. So the music is another great part of this game. I forget his name. Tell me his name.
Christopher Larkin.
Christopher Larkin. Yeah, I remembered that on my first try. The music for this game is outstanding, too.
I can't stop listening to it.
I love that this team is so small, too. There's so few people who actually worked on this game, and it is so brilliant.
Atmospheric was the word I was looking for.
Atmospheric, yeah. I think the art is atmospheric. I think the gameplay makes it feel isolated and atmospheric, and the music may be the best part, especially in this fight. We're talking about music, and there was no music. It was just no eyes, this very disturbing lore character.
Ooh, the lore of that one's really creepy.
It is.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It obviously is.
I
we were obviously just going to talk about how much we love this game.
I personally recommend, if you've played this game and like maybe you weren't paying too much attention to lore, go back and read it.
Try
for
reading
all the bosses.
everything.
They're great. Like every boss has a certain story. You're not just fighting them to fight them. Well, except for the one where you're just fighting to get the bench.
Right. That's the perfect story. You just want the bench. It's like you're fighting for your bonfire in Dark Souls, and that really is what you're doing in that game.
There's so many times where this game does that to you.
Was that weak? Well, I'm using the strongest nail, so.
Where you're trying to get to a bench, you're like, oh, I just need to save. Mm-hmm. And the game destroys the bench right in front of you. And it just takes that away from you. So I beat him on my first try, too. I was proud of that.
0 or the bouncy ball guy?
0. No, the bouncy ball, I didn't get the gimmick, and then I had to fight him a second time.
Oh, I didn't even do the gimmick. I was fighting him the way he was supposed to be fought there. They always get me from underneath.
Yeah, I actually beat him on my first try, which is good because I totally missed...
He's right next to a bench, and you would have lost it.
I missed the bench.
I know.
I missed the bench. I came straight from Deep Nest.
Yeah, I think I had to tell you that afterward. Like, you passed a bench, right?
Yeah, maybe that's why I won, because it was so high stakes. If I didn't, I was going to have to go through Deep Nest.
Yeah, she escaped Deep Nest, somehow got all the way here.
So, music-wise, Deep Nest doesn't really have much of anything.
Ooh, it's just
the atmospheric and, like, writhing.
That's very Metroid-y. I like that.
So
I think that it's got a mix. Like, it's got some music that I think is like really great tunes, and then it's got the great atmosphere, which is what I think Metroid does really well. Not to just turn this into a Metroid thing. Same for Dark Souls, except Dark Souls is more about like, here is your just atmosphere, and then when you're in a boss fight, tremendous music, and it's all orchestral and triumphant or terrifying.
Right. This game does both, really.
It does,
really well.
It does both. I think Metroidvania should do both, because you need to feel like you're exploring and like discovering things and puzzle solving, and there's music for that fits that. And then you need to feel afraid at some points, and you need to feel like you're fighting a very powerful boss that you are not prepared for, but you're going to try it anyway. If
you listen to the soundtracks without playing the game, you'll notice how much it lends to the gameplay. So, like, the soundtracks, they pick up as they go along. Like, you've explored deeper, and it's the music will start to pick up, and it'll, like, really affect, I feel like, how you're thinking and feeling while you're playing at that time, but you don't really notice it until... you've gone back and you've listened to the tracks 580 times,
shoot. In the Pantheon, you have to fight this guy with no floor.
I'm terrible at fighting him.
Yeah, this that is one of the reasons why I was like, I'm not gonna beat that Pantheon. I'm just not.
I think,
beat him with my... my thorns.
Maybe that's why I like this game so much. I accidentally walk into enemies all the time.
When you take contact damage, you have a charm for dealing damage for the contact damage.
So it worked out for me. But yeah, I was just talking about how, like, you're progressively, the music changes and gets more upbeat the more you've explored an area, and...
I think one of the best parts of the game, and I don't want to just go back to the gameplay, I would consider this more like us moving to our sell it, is the difficulty curve. I think the curve is wonderful, because the player is the one who has to get better, and they are giving you stuff along the way to help you get better, but really, you're the one who has to do the improving, and it's not like they're going to give you all of the energy so you can soak up the damage. Clearly I'm still dying to a bunch of these bosses with endgame stuff. They're dying faster, but I'm still, like, having to deal with everything that they're throwing at me, and it still hurts just as hard. It's not like you get a ton of HP at a time. Like, in Zelda, when you beat a boss, you're given a whole heart container, but you can find pieces to build another one. So inevitably, by just playing through the main game, your health is going to be really high. In Hollow Knight, you can only find pieces. So your health is always low. Your damage output is always low. It's always based on how you want to play it, how you want to make the knight stronger.
We found out that Zach played this game, like, really wrong. Which
I wouldn't say wrong. Possible. There's not really a wrong way to play a game. I think he played it on extreme hard mode without realizing it, and then blamed the game on it.
For me, being like a first-time person with a game like this, don't be intimidated by it.
No.
This game has a great difficulty curve.
It does. It's teaching you in a really brilliant manner in the beginning. The Forgotten Crossroads are actually locking you in, as I kind of mentioned earlier, where you could explore in a lot of different directions, but eventually you're going to be blocked by something that either requires, like, the dash, which you get by beating Hornet very early on, or you're gonna need magic in order to progress. And both of those you get by just very early bosses, and it's making sure that you're traveling in the right direction early on. And then I believe it's as soon as you get to the City of Tears, the game's like, you can go wherever you want. I think you need a Mantis Clause. You get the Mantis Clause, you can go almost everywhere.
You need to get out of the City of Tears.
If you choose to enter it. You don't have to enter it. You can get the Mantis Clause and go almost anywhere. And that's really, really cool. And that's actually a Super Metroid thing. Super Metroid is the same thing at the very beginning. It makes you fight like the first few bosses, and it feels like you're open, but you're really not. You're actually going in a set area and following like set corridors until you get to a point where the game's like, okay, you have your super missiles, you have your morph ball bombs, you've got enough capabilities to explore on your own, and we've kind of taught you how the game works, and you've shown that you know how the game works without any tutorials telling you how the game works. That's my favorite part of the game design.
I guess I'm still thinking of like my sell it section, because I'm like, don't be intimidated by this game, because I was at first.
Yeah, and actually that's one thing I regret about my playing with myself review. I kind of think now this might be one of the only reviews where I would want to change the number on it. I was very strict with what would give me a 10 out of 10, especially for Hamster, the critical side. I think he should have given it a 10 as well. I don't think the game is pulled down by having extra content that goes above and beyond, that is a little above most players' capabilities to even beat, no matter how much time they put into the game.
So what I was trying to say was, like, don't be intimidated by it, because the difficulty curve is there. The game will teach you how to get better at it. Yeah, you are going to find some bosses hard, but don't let that discourage you. Keep fighting them, because it's not about, I need to go and level up and just get stronger. It's about just practice it, learn it, and you do it. And I think because I played this game, I am a more confident gamer now because of that.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, if you can beat this, and she beat the Radiance, you can beat Dark Souls. And that's one of those that I was actually scared of. Like, everyone says this is like one of the hardest games ever. I can't beat Dark Souls. It's only because you'll say those things until you're able to beat one of those crazy hard games, and then it just doesn't apply to you anymore,
Well, I think
it's a challenge.
I think it's just misinterpreted if that's the case.
I think so too. It's still designed for humans to play it.
Sometimes something can be labeled as a crazy hard game, and it's because gameplay-wise it just doesn't function well. Like
there's some
plenty
reason.
of games like that. This functions well, and it has a high difficulty curve at one point, but that is extra content. You do not need to do that to enjoy this game. You don't even need to beat the Radiance to get ending in this game.
No, you don't. You actually can do a very small amount and still beat the game.
But I do recommend make sure you're hunting and finding charms if you do play
yes,
this.
It's still a Metroid game. You still need to look around as much as you can and get as much as you can find, because that's going to make your journey a lot easier.
It will. Don't be intimidated by it. I know some people really are, because I know I was one of those people.
I had actually on Steam, I'll have to say, I did play a little bit farther on Steam because I had not just Paintmaster Shio, but this dude unlocked. The little flea guy. Nailmaster Sly. He's hard.
The ultimate nail master.
So, I've kind of mentioned how I would re-rate this game, but I would still say the same verbiage. And honestly, numbers matter so little to me when I'm talking about rating a game. I really want people to spend more time listening to what I had to say about the game, and not so much, oh, he gave this one an 8 and a 6. It can't be that great. Even though, like, 8s and 6s, I love those games. I'm just thinking, like, okay, does it really justify me saying that it's one of the greatest video games ever made?
You say things like that, but sometimes when the new game comes out and we're iffy about it, and we're like, oh, it got a 78 on Metacritic, maybe it's not.
Metacritic is never really worth trusting, though. You don't know those people.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. Like, we do that every time. We'll check a game, we'll check the rating numbers on everything, and then
I'm walking into
and then we try to decide later on, like, is this what we really want to play or not, And that's the problem. Like, you don't really know if you're going to enjoy a game till you play it. And I think that's an issue with how much games cost now.
Yeah, it's like you have to like it because you've got to be invested $70 on it now.
Yeah, you've spent so much money on it. And it's funny, for me because games cost so much more, but I'm spending so much less time in them.
Some of them, yeah.
Because, like, before...
This might be one of the biggest bang for your buck games I've ever seen.
Witcher 3.
Yeah, that game gets on crazy sales, but the base price of Hollow Knight, you can buy this for, like, $15, list price digital. That's crazy.
I'm just saying, Witcher 3 is like $10 sometimes.
Sometimes it is, yeah. So this is Master Sly. I don't remember that one. This is Grim.
Grim's great. I love him.
Just for you, while Kim is going to tell... Yeah, obviously we had to have our Metroid boss earlier, so our Castlevania boss.
We went through our Sell It.
So... Rate it, Kim. Tell us your positive Kim and the critical Kim.
My positive is definitely a 10.
You had 10 out of 10. It's like fun. How much fun you had with
I
the game,
had
really.
so much fun.
What am I thinking? Why did I do that?
You didn't bow. You just took him into his third level.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
What's wrong with you?
That was so dumb.
What? It's his full health and his third phase.
Yeah, I think so. It's something bad. Okay. Anyway, Kim, that was so stupid.
You didn't bow to Grim. What's your problem?
It was an axe. Oh my gosh, I stood right in there.
He will never let you forgive this accident. Like, you're not allowed to live this accident down now.
Well, he forgets when you start it over again, but yeah. Not for this fight. No, he will not unrage himself.
I'm just looking at this now. I'm like, just start it over. Why did you do that?
I can do... Ow. It's still Grim.
Oh, yeah, it's still Grim. Grim is DLC for anybody who's watching
free DLC. Like, the DLC is all free. Isn't that great to hear?
For anybody who's watching this is like, I don't want to fight that.
Yeah, it actually becomes a bullet hell shooter at one point. Just this boss, though. Nobody else really does anything like this. And as you can see how I'm dodging it, it's not that bad.
Blorbs?
Oh, yeah, right. Blubber? Blubber blubbers. Boom.
You gotta hit it. Okay.
I'm aware. I didn't have enough to heal and hit him with my up spells, what I wanted to do.
So, I guess my critical's a 10.
I had a feeling. Well, really, she was actually thinking about this before we were recording. I want to hear your reasoning. Why is Hollow Knight a critical 10?
Because I think that people should not be intimidated to play it. The game teaches you how to play it.
Oh, right, you can...
You can dash.
So, no, I realized just a trick if anyone's having trouble with Grim. If he gets to it again, I will show you. You can actually Shape of Un and dodge the entire bullet hell attack.
It doesn't go down that low.
It does. It does go that low.
No.
You dodge the entire bullet hell.
There's no...
No, he doesn't.
You're going underneath
only Shape of Un can dodge it.
Okay.
I've done it before. There, here, I'll do it. Okay,
it's
that
not
one.
Low enough.
It was low under one? I walked under one of them.
One, yeah.
Okay, well, I've done it. There, I did it. But apparently it only works sometimes, as we've just found out from experimentation.
Yeah.
Not worth it if it only works sometimes.
So,
hit him.
My critical definitely a 10 because I don't think people should be intimidated to play it because
I feel like people shouldn't be intimidated to play any game.
I know, but like this has
a reputation.
A reputation of being a difficult game, and that's just not true. I feel like. You
know what? Another one that is like that. Oh, this is the one you Shape of Un under. My bad. It's the bats. It's the bats.
I just go over the bats. You didn't even bow to him.
I'm sorry.
Dishonor him.
Another game that is just like that is Breath of the Wild, and we were thinking of making this video about Breath of the Wild instead, and that's a game that I think everyone says it's so hard.
People say that's hard?
Yeah, they say that's one of like the hardest new games that you can play, and no, it's not. It's so...
Definitely
I don't want to say it's easy, but pause.
I want to say it's easy.
Pause, guys, pause.
You can eat your way out of any situation.
Yes, you can literally eat your way out of any situation, except if you're playing in the master mode and you got Ganon down to his final third of health, which makes him start recovering.
Hey, we're not talking about this game.
That's like the only instance when it's hard. But yeah, I agree. This game is just like it feels like a perfect curve where it's difficult.
Get hard. Don't interpret that as it is a hard game.
Yeah, but hard games are equally rewarding when you beat things. So in Dark Souls, I start the very first boss. I was like jumping out of my chair when I beat that thing because at first when I saw it, I was laughing at how bogus hard that was.
Well,
Hollow Knight does that.
It's different.
Oh yeah, I love that.
What I'm saying is people are saying, I feel like people are saying hard game is like you're always just going to be tripping up and you're not going to have a good time because it's hard. This is like, it can have difficult enemies, and I get that. It shouldn't label the whole game as being hard. Don't be intimidated by it just because it has a reputation as being a quote-unquote hard game, because I don't think that's true. Like, if you just play it, it'll teach you how to play it.
Yeah, the actual world building will. And then the bosses, even if you're scared of the bosses, I showed you almost all of them. And I haven't played the game in a year, and I barely remember the controls, and I was fine.
And even when they are hard, I think Radiance took me like 2 weeks before I finally was able to beat it.
To be fair, you could only play like an hour at a time every few days. So, yes, it did take 2 weeks, but...
I was playing, I think I played 3 hours.
Once, yeah.
A few times.
Really?
Trying to get through it.
Because to beat the Radiance, you also have to beat the Hollow Knight and then go into his stream first.
Easy though, once you get everything else down.
Yeah, once you...
And then you get cocky, and then he kills you. So just note that if you get through it, it's super rewarding. And those parts that you have found personally hard, you can get through. And it's going to be different for everybody. Like, Alex had trouble with Soul Master. I did not have trouble with Soul Master.
I beat him here. Hey, I did.
And things like that. You know, it's just different for everybody. I don't think I would consider this... I like the word challenging better. Okay. I think it's a challenging game.
So if you're positive you had a blast with it, 10 out of 10, and critically you're like, okay, studying this, like, this is highly polished 10 out of 10. And I agree now, going back. I just think I should have been more generous with the 10 back then, because I've later reviewed things that I'm like, hey, Hollow Knight is on that level as Dark Souls. It should have also had the same score. But anyway, you would say that this breakout indie game is one of the greatest games ever made?
Yeah, I think I would.
Isn't that cool?
It very easily made it. I can't believe it's on like my top 10s list. I would play this again, no problem.
I just think that's really cool that this small group of people with a Kickstarter campaign made one of the greatest games ever made. Because Nintendo isn't making more Metroid games, but now they finally are.
But would you say this is better than Dread?
No.
Sorry, I shouldn't have gone there.
No. No. You know what? That could be a very interesting Hitbox episode if we just take everything that I gave a 10 out of 10 to, no matter if it was just Bomb or just Hamster, put all of them together, and even ones that you think are 10 out of 10, and rank them.
Actually rank which one's the best.
Actually rank them, because my point of bringing that up was, don't just think that big AAA games are the only ones that can be industry defining and huge. Sometimes those are the only ones that are the most generic and bland. Look at Ubisoft. They're not making anything interesting. Anything. You know why? Because they stopped making Rayman. But beside the point, there's big companies that are like not even it actually is a really hard game. That one's
actually a legitimate, like, I would call that a hard game.
Yeah, that Rayman is a very hard game. I would, you know what? I beat all of Rayman Origins, and I would say beating that end challenge of Night of the Dead or whatever it was called, that was harder than anything I've ever done in Hollow Knight, and I beat the Path of Pain.
But I also don't think it plays as well as Hollow Knight.
No, Hollow Knight's way more polished, and that's
why I would consider that hard and consider this challenging.
Yeah, and it's really rewarding too, and I think that's the best thing you can get out of a game.
So rewarding! Oh my gosh.
So I guess before we wrap up, because we definitely went over time, but it doesn't matter. We do every single time.
I knew we were going to record.
Are there any other games that you'd like to sit down and do this?
I don't know. Now that we're talking about Breath of the Wild, I'm like, man, I guess I've just been oblivious to how the internet feels about Breath of the Wild, because I have my own personal opinion.
Internet's like, this is the greatest thing since sex. 10 out of 10 everywhere. It's the greatest thing ever.
I can say that about Hollow Knight for sure.
Well, I'm partially insulted by that because I'm her husband. It says more about me than it says about Hollow Knight. I think, okay, let's end the episode there. Thank you all so much for tuning into this episode of Hitbox. If you enjoyed the show, you can help us keep it alive by supporting us on Patreon with the links to the show notes in this video's description. For those of you on YouTube, remember to like the video and subscribe for more. And be sure to let us know what you thought of the show and what other topics you'd like to hear us cover in the future. And special thanks to all of our amazing Patreon members.
Just beat the Radiance! And then lay down in the euphoria that you beat the Radiance.
Bye! See ya! Bye!
Bye!